So we are pursuing always our special coverage for this gathering for the ninth edition of the Conference of the State Parties to the United Nations Convention Against Corruption. And these sidelines of the gathering, we have one of the most prominent personalities here, Mohamedou Diane, Vice President for Integrity World in the World Bank. Mr. Mohamedou, great pleasure to have you in RTV International. And as you watch how the World Bank Group fights corruption in developments with a global proactive approach, this is one of the mission taken by World Bank. So, Mr. Mohamedou Diane, first of all, why is corruption so important to World Bank?
Yes, it is an important topic for the World Bank because, as you know, the primary mission of the World Bank Group is to fight poverty and to promote shared prosperity for the countries. And corruption is actually one of the major obstacles to development for a number of reasons. It has very high economic costs. Second, it does divert resources from where they are most needed to some rent-seeking activities. So it really results into a very poor allocation of resources, which in and of itself can hinder development. It does slow down growth for countries. If you think about the way corruption impacts the business environment in a country, it does create a business environment such that costs are artificially high, and the private sector in many cases may shy away from investing in a highly corrupt environment because it's just difficult to do business. So actually it does push away the private sector, which means losing opportunities to create jobs and growth. But the most important aspect, I think, is the social impact of corruption. It affects the poor and the vulnerable.
Especially this COVID context.
Absolutely. It does affect the poor more than anyone else because think about the poor. They are the least capable of paying bribes to anyone. So that means they might not be able to pay a bribe to access a hospital, to access a school for the education of their child, to access social services. So corruption creates a significant barrier to access for the poor, and therefore for an institution like the World Bank, which is focused on fighting poverty, corruption has to be at the heart of our mandate. That's why it's important for us.
In this journal of the conference, you have made rather some great messages. If we can ask you about what is the role of the Integrity Vice Presidency at the World Bank?
The primary role of the Integrity Vice Presidency is actually to investigate allegations of fraud and corruption in the bank's project. Every year, we receive a large number of allegations. As you might imagine, the World Bank invests a lot of money in a large number of countries, and surely we do receive a lot of complaints about how that money is being used. Just to give you an example, last year for our fiscal year that ended in June, we received more than 4,000 complaints just for 1 year. Now, obviously, you have to eliminate the duplicates, and some of the complaints are frivolous, but even accounting for that, you still end up with a pretty large number of allegations that are pretty serious allegations. And the World Bank has a zero-tolerance policy. When we receive allegations, we look into those allegations, we evaluate them, and when we determine that actually those allegations are credible and they involve bank funding, we systematically pursue them. So that means we do the investigations, and when we do substantiate that actually bank funding has been misused or sanctionable practices have occurred, we initiate sanctions. Companies and individuals get sanctioned, and generally the sanction means they get debarred and they cannot do business for the bank for a certain period of time. But our approach is not purely...
This is my main question, because also you have made here a great title. there is a proactive approach. What does that mean?
What it means is we just don't want to be reactive, to just wait until things go wrong and then we go to investigate. Proactive means being more engaged upfront to prevent things from happening, from going wrong.
Yeah.
So in that context, we do a lot on the prevention side, on building awareness, and also making sure in the context of the bank's projects that there are very strong fiduciary safeguards. And obviously, it's not just the integrity vice presidency. We work with operations. Our governance global practice is involved. A lot of actors within the World Bank are working collaboratively to make sure that when we design projects, we think about the mitigation aspects and what safeguards need to be in place to ensure that the money is protected so that we can achieve our developmental goals. So that's essentially what the prevention side means. And also we work a lot with countries to build their capacity, and I think that also has a proactive element.
So to conclude this interesting interview, what does the World Bank do in order to help the countries in this fighting of corruption? How do you try to strengthen more and more the countries?
Yeah, that's an important question because the countries are the front line.
Yeah.
That's where you want to actually make sure things don't go wrong. So we do a lot in terms of institutional capacity building, helping countries build strong institutions. We do a lot to help countries build transparency because transparency is very important.
Yeah.
When you have opacity, corruption is going to thrive. You want to have more transparency. For example, in public procurement, we do a lot in helping countries, for example, with how to use technology to reduce fraud and corruption risk. So these are all areas where we work very closely with the countries and also supporting civil society and supporting other actors to make sure that actually there is an environment that promotes good governance. So these are all things we do.
Yes. Mr. Mohamedou Diane, Vice President for the integrity in the World Bank. Thanks a lot.
It's a pleasure.
Thanks. Okay. So go back to you in the studio. And always we are trying to pursue our special coverage for this gathering.